Hello everybody, my name is Shortline614 and welcome back to episode, I think this is 22 of Shortline Space Program. In the last episode, Val Kerman did not die because of the power of quick saves, and we are of course descending Pathfinder base, Expedition 1 of Pathfinder base. And the last few minutes of the last episode did not happen. Just go ahead and forget. Luckily, power quick saves, and obviously Val Kerman is very much still alive. So, just coming in for a landing. I actually land relatively close. I was actually going to land on top of Pathfinder base, but I ended up landing a couple of feet away, about less than 100 meters away, which is still pretty good. And I go ahead and I land, and I of course deploy the ladder, and now it's time to get out and walk about on the surface of Minmus. Val gets out, she begins to walk around, she doesn't die this time. Switch back, go to Bill, he's coming out now, and he of course hits his head, and this time he's floating. He's floating for some reason, and now he's floating back down to the surface, which is rather strange. This is a really weird bug that I've encountered. So I go back and I go to Bob to see if this happens again, and it doesn't. So for some reason, Bill Kerman is just kind of there. And whenever I jump, that happens. I have no, that's probably the thumbnail. I have no idea why that occurred. And I go ahead and I try and plant the flag just to see what would happen. And the flag is on the bottom, but the flag doesn't want to stay up. It immediately wants to fall over, which is kind of weird. And then I go down to the surface and I pick the flag back up. And now everything is fine, which is really weird to me. So if anyone knows what actually happened there, somebody please tell me. So I go ahead, I get the Kerbals all lined up, and they go ahead and they plant the flag. Val plants the flag, and for some reason the flag wants to fall over. So the flag actually falls over. I go ahead and I quick save and I try to redeploy it to see what happens, and I just give up at this point. We can always go back and plant another flag later, who knows. Anyways, I start to bring the Kerbals actually over to the base itself, and obviously we've landed. We set the base down in an area where the Ice Cream Highlands, where there's also a lot of other stuff from the Minmus Express missions before. So I go ahead, I place the Kerbals down, and this is when I begin to realize that I go ahead and I put the lander into hibernation mode. And I obviously switch back to the Kerbals. And this is when I begin to realize that I should have done some more testing, because for some reason, while I try and take these wheels off, just to kind of see, I don't think I'll need the wheels, just to take them off to see what happens. And of course, the wheel kraken strikes, I guess, and they float up in the air. And I also should have done more testing because, it really doesn't like me to. It's kind of difficult to actually get into the base itself. Of course, later on we'll probably have a module which will help us. Kind of maybe like an airlock module where they can easily go in. I can just transfer them. And Bob kind of falls to the surface there. Of course, this is all at 4 times speed, so. And I go ahead and I get Val, and I just decide to say screw it with that. I'm just gonna, jump and then use my RCS pack and grab on as I fly past. Which, of course, that's not something you would want to do in real life. But I do manage, after a few tries, to actually get Val in. I go up the ladder, and as you can see, there's a board button, so it's just, enough fiddling around. Transfer the parachutes in there, because I don't really need them. And, this has a lot of surface equipment that we can go ahead and deploy. So what I do is I go ahead and I get Val out, and I grab some of our surface equipment. Of course, I have to get rid of my jetpack, so we won't be doing any flying around. This is only my second or third time actually experimenting around with the Kerbal, I guess you would call it the Kerbal inventory system. So, messing around with the Kerbal inventory system and actually screwing stuff up will also be kind of a theme of this episode. So I slowly go back and forth fetching stuff. Um, start to place stuff down. There was no Shortline Space Program last week because I was incredibly sick, and it's actually late this week. These are supposed to come out at like 7 o'clock every Thursday, but it is currently 8 o'clock. So hopefully it's probably going to come out right after I record this. It's probably going to throw together a thumbnail, and I'm probably not even going to premiere it. I'm probably just going to release it because I have had a lot of school and whatnot. And I've also been sick. It hasn't been the best past few weeks. So I go ahead and I have to go and place these down in a very correct order. So I go ahead and I place down that RTG, which will hopefully provide all the power necessary. I can go ahead and interact. I can pet the RTG. I don't think that's a good thing. That's a good idea. And, interactions, stuff like that. And Val slowly walks back towards the, Pathfinder base. One thing I might eventually do is, I know there's a way you can change the, that's another thing that they added that I totally forgot about. You can, change the spacesuits now to whatever you want. I should probably go ahead and do that. That would be pretty cool. I don't know what I would change them to, though. Probably, like, blue, red, and white. Because you have the Shortline Space Program flag, which is, it's just the flag of Georgia, but it's with, instead of the coat of arms, it's my little guy in an astronaut suit. Interact with stuff, pet the RTG, hopefully Bill doesn't get a whole lot of radiation. Anyways, I go, and I also get Bob out, and so they're all out. All the Kerbals are out doing surface activities now, which is rather fun. Now, this is at like 3 or 4 times speed. So this is actually, this took a lot longer in real life. This is actually rather tedious. And this episode was actually recorded over the course of 2 weeks. Like, this is one session, and there was another. What we do after this was a completely different session. And I haven't actually recorded anything up past this episode yet, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I might go ahead and oh yeah, so I jump, and at this point I get really scared because I'm afraid Bill is going to die. So I turn on unbreakable joints, no crash damage to make sure that he doesn't. I totally forgot about that. If you excuse me. Anyways, last little segment. Other than that, we just need to bring out the lights. And, I go ahead and I finally place the last surface experiment down. Of course, these do nothing, because this is sandbox mode. These are science experiments, right? So you're supposed to do them in science mode or in career mode. But, it's stuff that you can put on the surface, which is cool nonetheless. And, of course, using some of these new parts, which is, of course, these lights. So I pick up that part. For some reason, it just straight up disappears. No idea why. So I go ahead and I place down that surface light and whatnot, and there's a couple more surface lights that I can put down. I don't think I put down all of them, but I put down most of them. Of course, this is very useful, because if you wanted to build, like, a massive base, you would actually have to, like, fly lampposts down or whatever. I remember me and my friends, we built a base in Luna Multiplayer on the Mun, and I had to build lampposts and, like, have a little truck that went out there, and each of them had, like, engines and whatnot, so they could land. Anyways, there's the Kerbals next to the surface experiments, and of course I tab out, and this is where the next session begins. And if you remember, a long time ago, when we brought up Pathfinder base, we brought up that little machine sort of thing. Well, we brought up that machine, and we also brought up the little flyer thing, surface flyer thing, and we also brought up, if you remember in the last episode, we brought up SAS, and we brought up some RCS to fix this what's it called, this lander for my design oversight. So I take Bill, a quick stroll across the surface, and, obviously playing KSP a lot is tend to be a learning experience, so this is another one of my learning experiences. First of all, I have no idea why Bill can't go up past this ladder. Should have tested that beforehand. Anyways, I get out my RCS. Oh, I take that little cubic octagonal strut, and this is where I begin to mess around with actually doing the actually messing around with actually putting stuff and assembling stuff together. So I can't put that in my inventory, so I just kind of go ahead and I put it on there, just kind of haphazardly. It works, which I guess that's all you can really say about it. And then I think, alright, what if I slide this inside, and then I find a way to put it inside? And it turns out that isn't actually something that you can do, and you can't slide parts, like if you have several parts attached to each other, apparently you can't slide them in correctly, which, that's fine, I guess. It makes sense. But, so what I actually have to end up doing, yeah, you can see right there, I can't put it on there because it's clipping into another part. So what I end up doing is I just kind of end up taking the cubic octagonal strut, putting it on the side of the lander can. You know, it's not centered, which I have to go ahead and center it. And then what I end up doing is I end up putting the SAS on there, and then I end up sliding the SAS inside the center of the craft. So there's just a random cubic octagonal strut on the side of our lander, which is fine, but if it works, it works. That noise right there was, I'm in my closet, right, to record this, so I actually have good audio, and it's full of stuff, and something just moved. Hopefully this and everything doesn't fall apart, because that would kind of suck. Anyways, I go ahead and I put these RCS tanks on, and, well, they're not centered again. That's because I didn't land the craft 100% perfectly, which, is fine. And I end up just doing that because I thought it would look the best, I guess. But, this has increased its RCS by a fair amount. So this is actually fairly functional now. This isn't particularly, because before it was rather actually hard to fly, but with this, because it has more RCS and it has more has SAS now, we can actually, I don't have to worry every time I fly this craft, which is good considering it is well, it is a kind of a crew lander. I go ahead and I check the RCS, I check the SAS. I wonder why for some reason it's not moving, and then I realize, oh wait, I put this thing in hibernation. So I go ahead, we move the engines around, which proves to me that, well, that works. And then I accidentally switched to one of the Minmus Express probes, and for some reason, these like to jump above the surface. So what I actually have to end up doing is I have to, and it lands on the solar panels. I actually have to end up re-landing this thing, which is rather funny. Kind of sucks when you switch from craft to craft, everything likes to jump. You know, if it jumps too high in the air, that might cause explosions, which, you know, that's not fun. That's not fun at all. Anyways, Bill continues to walk across the surface, and, because he has a jetpack. I don't know why I just didn't jetpack over. And, well, he begins to walk towards Pathfinder base itself, and he goes ahead and he puts his jetpack away because he's not really going to need it. And then what I do is I take Val over because we have our little low-flying vehicle that we brought up with Pathfinder base. And there was a spot on Minmus that I found particularly interesting that I wanted to go to. And in fact, and this would be the perfect vehicle to actually, you know, get there because I want to experiment with this thing, see if something like this would be feasible. And anyways, Val, as the pilot, she's the pilot, she's going to go ahead and get on top of our little, I guess, long-range flyer. They actually proposed something like this for the Apollo program, but it never actually ended up happening, because, haha, funny budget cuts, 0 out of 10, no Apollo applications program. Well, Apollo applications became Skylab, and then we ended up having 2 Saturn V's that we never launched, but it's fine. So I go ahead and I switch to our little long-range flyer vehicle over here, and, well, I go ahead and switch to it. Val perked on top of there. This actually has some equipment in it. And one thing that I also did forget, you'll see this later, Val actually has a jetpack. And if you know anything about the Kerbal inventory system, you know that well, that's going to cause some problems later. Anyways, I start flying over land. You know, this is rather fun. I really like this vehicle. Unfortunately, I only get to use this once, and I probably will only ever get to use this once unless I bring up something else, and you'll see why in a moment. So Val flying over the surface of Minmus. I probably should have tested this unmanned, and I also probably should have paid close attention to my Delta V, because what I end up doing is I end up going to a location that's way far out of the range for this vehicle, which you'll see that in a moment. But it admittedly, this is rather cool. I'll totally bring one of these to, like, the Mun or whatever, you know, whenever we start to go to that. But I want to build up my Minmus base first, because Minmus bases are fun. Or just bases in general are kind of fun to build. Anyways, we fly over the surface, and my eventual goal is to actually get on top of that mountain that we're heading up right there, which is actually, I think that's where we go. Yeah, it's a little plateau, and it's a really high plateau. It's like, it's several kilometers above the surface. One of the highest points on Minmus, I think. And as you can see, I don't have enough Delta V to actually get back, so at this point I'm saying, oh shit, we need to land. Because I was afraid I was going to run out of Delta V, and Val would die a painful death going into the surface of Kerbin at Minmus at really high speed. And it doesn't help that the control for this is actually relatively off-center, so this was actually a pretty interesting landing. Thank God that I actually had maneuverability on this thing. And we go ahead and we land, and Val gets out. She gets out of her seat. I don't know what I actually end up naming this place. But as you can see, there's a problem now, because I have all that stuff in there. But I can't actually put any of it in there, and I can't, like, drop any of this on the surface. So, I'm kind of stuck. So I go ahead and I plant the flag. Big Mountain. I have no idea what to name this place. Just call it the Big Mountain. And as you can see with Kerbal Inventory System, I kind of messed up here. And actually, what ends up happening is one of my experiments actually ends up disappearing. Like, it just disappears out of thin air. The antenna, which kind of sucks. And also, I realized I didn't actually bring any power, so this really doesn't matter. Any of this, I can't use any of this, because it has no power, and it has no way of communicating back. So I begin to panic, and then I realize, wait a second, I have a lander with SAS and RCS. So I can just go ahead and I can fly, and I can also take one of these RTGs and actually power it. So, I very quickly realized that, well, if I take one of the RTGs off of here, then there won't be enough power to actually power all the stuff over here. So I don't actually end up doing that. I end up picking that up and putting it back down for whatever reason. And then I pick that up, thinking, you know, oh, that will work. I can bring that over. And then I realize, oh yeah, that's not going to work. I'd rather have the stuff powered here than on a mountain a billion kilometers away. Well, not a billion. About 50 to 100 kilometers away that I'm probably not going to fly to again. So, it is up to us to attempt a rescue mission. And, well, I don't want to risk, because this is the first time flying this with its new additions, I don't want to risk Bill or Bob's life, because this thing can fly completely unmanned. And it's a lot more maneuverable thanks to that SAS, which is really, really nice. I do actually end up getting into an orbit. And then what I end up doing is I have a lot of Delta V to spare, so I wasn't really particularly worried about my Delta V margins with this craft. So what I ended up doing is I ended up, obviously, flying to the Big Mountain, as it is called, and going ahead and landing about a kilometer, not even a kilometer, like, I land walking distance, about 400 meters away from where Val is. And then Val's going to get into this craft, and then she'll go back to Pathfinder base. I go ahead and I land this thing. I land the vehicle. And unfortunately, our little long-range flyer is going to have to be abandoned unless I send another craft out to this place. To actually, like, unless I can find a way to, like, refuel it. One thing that I really think would be interesting, there might be a mod for this, where, actually, I think there is mod for this. I think it's in Kerbal Attachment System, I think. where I could land this next to the craft, and then I could like transfer SAS fuel over here. But obviously that's not the objective right now. So I make these big hops using my what's it called, my the jetpack, so I don't have to walk all the way. And then obviously the Kerbal goes and flips out, and you know, because landing, well, you know. And I get back in. I do somersaults on the ladder, and I get back in, and I go ahead and I fly back to Pathfinder base. Um, so, and that's a relatively simple maneuver. Anyways, I think well, the episode's almost over, about a minute left. So before I actually land, I'd like to thank you all for watching. For this thank you for watching this video, and well, I'll end the video on us slowly making our way back to Pathfinder base, and because this is infinitely more maneuverable now, I end up landing this very, very close to the base. Like very close, like too close. No, not too close. I don't have to walk. You wouldn't want to land this close in real life. And we go ahead and we land, and we get Val out, and now everybody's home, which is really nice. Everybody has returned. So that was a rescue mission. Thank you all for watching, and well, I'll leave you the shot on the three Kerbals, the Kerbals in their base and whatnot. And thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.